She-Hulk episode 3. So this is a great episode. It's a shot of Jennifer walking the prison. She's questioning about the Abomination, escaping the prison, and him being recorded. That's what she questions about. Abomination said he chose not to escape and that Juan let him out, and he came back under his free will. She has the paralegal actually call Juan and see what's gonna happen with that, and she's being questioned about representing. The news is talking about her representing Emil, aka Abomination. People are mad about, pretty much it shows us all outraged about how She-Hulk is pretty much stealing the Hulk's name and all this other stuff, and saying that a woman superhero should get her own name and all this other things. And then honestly, it really goes to show, really, like, I feel like a lot of the MCU in this part, when they were talking about that, really reminds me of whenever a minority character, when they change the race of the character from white to another race, and people get mad at it a lot of time when the race really didn't matter to begin with. They could change Batman to a black man, and it wouldn't change anything at all, so I don't get why they get so mad about that, but it reminded me of that. What's your opinion on this, though, and what do you think? People mad about Gideon Wilson, well, who actually put away Abomination once, is really mad about it. He's like, he should be in prison and all this other stuff. She-Hulk gets called by her new boss, and Dennis is actually being defrauded by someone from New Asgard who's actually a shapeshifter and an elf, which is honestly very interesting that this is happening in the show. I feel like a lot of the show has been pretty good. And he thought it was Meg The Stallion. She shapeshifted as Meg The Stallion. Juan opens a portal, and She-Hulk is asked, has to leave. And he pretty much like asked if she can testify, and Juan pretty much agrees to it, which kind of surprised me. I figured he wouldn't want to. And then the amount of gifts he spent was over 170K when they made him pretty much say what it was. They have to build the case for Dennis, and then as well, Meg The Stallion's imposter actually fought someone. There was like a video of her like fighting someone, and he pretty much wants to drop the case, but it's actually the shapeshifter coming in and saying that. And Pug really like gets that, I mean, kind of later on, because he calls and is like, oh, my Cybertruck got towed and all this other stuff. And then now, pretty much, she actually went in and said some bad stuff about Pug, and pretty much tried to set him up as a bad person. There were reporters outside of the prison. She-Hulk enters and supposedly was rejected by the Avengers. Very interesting right there. Emil's soulmates actually show up, which is honestly very interesting overall. There's this whole thing where he has a bunch of soulmates throughout the show. It's honestly very weird, and kind of, it reminds me of like those serial killers who get like a bunch of wives on like death row, kind of like that. The board wants to keep it brief and detailed, and Emil talks about his shame and remorse that he has and redemption. The board asked him if he has housing or not. He said yes, and that they're going to support him. And they have a question, all the character witness. One was, he saved him from a bad marriage. The other one, he like created a library in the prison, and they used to make prison wine. Now they make kombucha in the, pretty much in the prison, which he seems to be really rehabilitated, which mostly prisons should start doing that more for non-violent offenders. They need to start rehabilitating people, so once they get out of prison, they don't find a way to get back in prison. Overall, prison is a business. They don't care about rehabilitation in the U.S. It's all about making money, and that's why private prisons exist. But overall, it seems like it goes well for him. It doesn't look like Juan's showing up, and she's like kind of stalling overall. And pretty much in the courtroom, it's Flash is there. She actually argues that the elf, or the elf's lawyer, that pretty much the immunity because of Asgard, and no one rational would believe the text from Meg The Stallion, and he was supposedly dating her. This judge is very skeptical of the catfishing. She shapeshifts in the judge, which later goes on in her sentencing. I should give her a longer sentence for that. Juan talks about how Emo wants to return and wanted to repay his debt to society when he took him out of the prison. Juan finally shows up, opens a portal, and he forced him out of the cell and offered him actually instant freedom and said he could have took him somewhere, but he actually wanted to go back. And he turns into Abomination. Everyone's freaked out. And he actually did it as a sign to show he has full control, which later on they say you can't turn back into Abomination or anything like that. It proves he could have broke free, but doesn't want to. The board says Juan could be in prison, and Juan pretty much walks out the door. She asks him about Mafia hit powers, which honestly was a very funny line, to be honest. And says that Dennis is deluded. Jennifer's pretty much testifying about Dennis, and says that his ego is just very, he has like this high ego, and a reasonable man wouldn't really fall for this, but he would. And he says he's a New York 10 and an LA 11, which he did not look like a New York 10 or anything like that. And someone of regional intelligence wouldn't think that talking to Megan Thee Stallion, which I don't know how he became a lawyer if he can't determine stuff like that. And says that Dennis is delusional. The judge awarded $175K payment to the elf, and also she has to go back. She has to go to prison. Meg The Stallion is in the show at the end, and in the back of the courtroom, really talking about it. And then Dennis asks if he should go back and talk to Megan Thee Stallion. They said it's a bad idea, which honestly I agree. And Dennis talks about taking away the elf's powers and really like using it in a good way, which I think that Jennifer actually used the elf powers to really make this decision go in her way, and she realized that Abomination is pretty much rehabilitated and should be brought back in society. One board member actually grants effective immediately that he can actually get out of and go back out in the open world, and one condition: he can't turn in Abomination. If he does, he goes back to prison. Emil stays and has to stay out of the news pretty much. Now she wants to go on TV because she can't stay out of the news overall, which honestly I agree with that. When you're in the news all the time like that, the best case when something controversial happens is get on and talk about it. You want to set your own narrative, which the paralegal actually told her about that earlier, but she didn't listen. And pretty much she corrects the news host and like said don't call her She-Hulk or call her Jennifer, and same with Abomination. And then some guy on the news pretty much has like the classic, oh, she shares her diet tips and exercise and all this other stuff, like the stuff they typically, I guess, would say on like the Today Show, or ask someone about that. And then someone attacks She-Hulk when she's walking home. And it goes bad for them, very bad, very fast, but this is very interesting. She-Hulk fights them and destroys all of them. Thunderbolt tried to get her blood, and says boss is getting mad, which honestly I wonder what they're gonna try to do with their blood. I can think of it just because they're gonna make another Hulk, and maybe they might do another kind of Abomination. I don't really know what they need the blood for. It's probably something superhuman. That would don't make the only sense, but I wonder who wants it, and why didn't they send for someone else to get it? It didn't seem like it worked out that well, and honestly very interesting. She-Hulk represents Meg The Stallion. It has some people thinking, is she a superhero or not in this show? Honestly, I don't really think so. I just think she might have been, I guess, ripped off by a superhero or something like that. And some people were talking about Meg The Stallion being on the show, because it reported earlier this week, right before the episode was out, that she was on this show. Some people were saying it was cringe and overall other stuff, and then some people were really happy for her. I thought it was a very good thing for Meg The Stallion being on the show, and I really liked it. Overall, about Meg The Stallion, supposedly she's going to be in the Bring It On. She wants to be on that show as well, so she might be going to more acting. But the rating for this episode is a 9.6. I think it's a bit weaker than the last episode, but there's a lot more funny moments, some action scenes. I think the action should really pick up. I would probably give it a 9.9 if it had more action. I want more action in the show. I think the comedy and the drama of the show is really good and is in a good way. But that's just my opinion. And like and subscribe, comment down below, and really have a good day.